former realtor. Okay, so essentially what we're going to go ahead and do is start going over some preliminary stuff before we actually go ahead and tackle the actual class itself. Now, on the front cover of your training handout, you all have the Tech Helpline telephone number, and that Tech Helpline number is 877-573-8104, and they are available to you 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 6 your time, local time. I forgot to shut mine off, sorry.
You're trying to sell you an extended car warranty.
Actually, this is a spam call, believe it or not.
No, I don't believe it.
It says spam.
Yeah,
spam, it says spam, it says spam risk. So you know what that means. Not going to happen. So let's go ahead and go back to where we were when I was rudely interrupted by this spammer here. Again, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and Saturday and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So you have 7 days of tech support. Give them a call if you have any issues with Form Simplicity, whether or not you have any issues with Esign, even if you have a problem with your own computer. If you don't have a tech person that you have to go to, give them a call. They'll be very happy to assist you with any problems that you might have on your computer. They, with your permission, they can remote into your computer. Now, also on the front of the desk here, there's a little placard here that also mentions that the Tech Helpline also has an app. So using your App Store or Google Play, you can actually download the Tech Helpline app directly onto your phone, and you can actually give them a call directly from that app, or you can chat with them on the app during the times that you see that we just happen to mention here. So just type in the word tech, T-E-C-H, space, helpline, and then locate that, just register, and then you should be ready to rock and roll. This is something that just got rolled out about almost 2 months ago. So take advantage of that if you're into doing it that way. And also, I do have to mention this in all of my classes, because I think the Tech Helpline, I don't know if anybody's worked with them yet, they are phenomenal, and they are so phenomenal that they even help one of our out-of-state clients, out-of-state of Florida clients, where they called the Tech Helpline, and this is a true call, because I looked at the log. They actually contacted the Tech Helpline because they had difficulty with their garage door opener. They could not open their garage. Seriously. So they actually contacted the Tech Helpline. And you know what the Tech Helpline did? They even told me this. They actually went online, asked for the model number of the garage, opened up the manual. There was a troubleshooting guide. They went through the troubleshooting guide. And once they got to that, we had one happy customer. Had nothing to do with real estate, but they took care of it. So if anybody here has a problem with any of their remotes, whether it's a garage or anything like that, give those guys a chat, okay? I thought that was pretty good. This is a true call. This is not just a joke. This is a true call. So please give them a call, because they eat, they drink, and they sleep technology. Now, on page 1 of your handout, talks about what Form Simplicity is. And I know there's other Form Simplicity programs that are out there. I mean, there are forms management programs that are out there in the marketplace. But what separates them from us is that Form Simplicity, for me, is a one-stop shop. I was a Form Simplicity user. I was also an Esign user. It's a one-stop shop program. You will use 100% of the program. You will. I know I did. Now, how many programs can you say you can use 100% of it? And what it says here too, is that it is owned and operated by Florida Realtors. So this is a Realtor Association owned program. And that's the one thing I always did use was association owned program. Like, I don't know if you all use RPR, that's done by NAR. Then I had Form Simplicity for me, Florida Realtors. And then of course for you all would be Idaho Realtors. And then I always had a local association, Realtor Association owned product there as well. So I always did that, and I figured I'm paying for it. Why do I have to spend extra money to do something that this can also do the same thing? Now, what's also a member benefit through the Idaho Association of Realtors is your Esign. Everyone here gets the Esign program automatically included with the form Simplicity. So go ahead and take advantage of that. We'll be talking about the Esign program in the second class. All right, so just keep that in mind there. Okay, then let's go ahead and turn to page 2. Page 2 talks about using form Simplicity in terms of registering for a login. Now, as you are aware of, you can actually access form Simplicity through the Idaho Realtors website if you wanted to do that, or maybe you can also access it through your MLS program. What is your MLS program here? Matrix? Paragon. Okay, so through Paragon, you should be able to access form Simplicity there. But then when you did that, let's say you did that a couple of months ago, and all of a sudden it said, doggone it, that form Simplicity is down. It went down, and I'm in the middle of putting together a contract. Well, I want to go ahead and give you something that you may want to keep in the back pocket or in the back of your mind. What you want to go ahead and do on page 2 is to go ahead and maybe consider registering for a form Simplicity login, because sometimes the link, what we call the third-party link, and I know that because I used to work MLS director for a local association in Florida, sometimes that link can go down. We may be up, but that link is down. And only you all don't know that, but we do. So what I would suggest that you do is to go ahead and go to idahorealtors.formsimplicity.com. Go to that website, idahorealtors.formsimplicity.com. Now, by the way, everything I'm showing you here and telling you here, make sure you remember this because we're going to have a quiz at the end of this class. Just kidding. I know people go, okay, no quiz. All right, so idahorealtors.formsimplicity.com. And then you're going to go right over here to this link where it says, I would like to register for my password. So then you're going to click on that link. And then you're going to go ahead and type in your name. Now, I'm not going to be able to complete this because I'm not a member of your association here. So I'm going to have to stop at this point. But once you type in your first name and last name, like you see in that second screenshot, then you're going to click on the Find Me button here. And then when you do that, it's going to take you to that third screenshot where it's going to pull your name up. All you have to do is put in your email address that you have at the Idaho Association of Realtors membership system here, and then continue on with the registration. So then all you have to do is create a password. You should be able to come up with a number that it provides you, and that's going to be your user ID. And then you're going to just use the password that you've created. And then once you set that up and you know that you're having difficulty getting in through your MLS, go ahead and go into your floridarealtors.formsimplicity.com, enter in your user ID and your password, and then just click on the login. And at that point, you should have no issues going into Form Simplicity. I like to just mention that because, you know, sometimes when you're dealing with third parties, we don't, you know, you all don't know that. We do, but you all don't know. But that's why we try to make sure that, you know, we have all the things necessary here. Okay, once you're logged in, this is your Form Simplicity home screen. By the way, how many here have used Form Simplicity? Okay, so most of you are familiar with Form Simplicity. But I'm going to go ahead and still show you as if you didn't use Form Simplicity, because there's some little tricks I'm going to point out to you here. First thing I want to mention here before I forget, it's not in your handout, but right up here where it says notifications, notice that there's a number 2 there. Think of that number 2, the same number 2 that you would find on your phone. Hey, you missed 2 phone calls, right? It's the same color, red, and it's got the 2 or the number in white. Well, that's just letting you know that you've missed 2 notifications from Form Simplicity. And just as I was mentioning before the class, Form Simplicity is always being enhanced. It's always being updated with new feature enhancements based on all of the members' feedback that we get, okay? And of course, this is not included in your training handout because this just came out today, all right? So, but this one here you can take a look at. and I'm going to look at this to see what you have here available and so on. But that's something that you can take a look at, and then once you're done, just click on the home button. One more thing before we tackle page 3, you all have access to the Help Center. Form Simplicity has a pretty cool Help Center where I've been tasked to update that every so often, and I have a bunch of ones I got to do when I come back to Florida. You have what we call the knowledge-based support articles, where you can actually go ahead and take a look at what these do for you. It gives you a step-by-step along with a screenshot as to what you need to do within that feature. Or if one of us some of us would like to do the visual look, you can check out the how-to tutorials, and it's going to give you tutorials on certain features within Form Simplicity, Esign, and then for any brokers who are here, we also have the broker features, okay, which I'm going to briefly talk about in the next class for sure. All right, so that is something that you have available. All right, so let's go ahead now, turn to page 3. Has anybody ever gone to the preferences section of Form Simplicity? Okay, well, this is one of the tips I think we need to have you take a look at. So as you can see on page 3, my preferences will allow you to set up email notifications, build your email signature, set your time zone, create a login if you needed to, also enable a 2-factor authentication. And also there's a section here called integration, which is also not in that paragraph, but that's what we're talking about. So let's go ahead and go into preferences. And here we have on page 3, those 6 sections. Hopefully all of us do see these sections. Now, I was in a couple of sessions earlier this week, and I actually had members said, hey, Kaz, I don't see 6 sections. All I see is 5. And I said, well, which section don't you see? And they say e-sign preferences and templates. And the reason why you may not see it is that even though everyone is given the e-sign program as a member benefit through the association, if you did not create an e-sign session, then that section will not appear. So if you're using a different signing program, but you're using Form Simplicity to do your transactions, then you will never see the 4th section where my mouse is right now. So that's something that you have to definitely keep in mind. So on page 4 of your handout, when you click on the account information, I forgot, somebody mentioned it just before class, and I don't remember who it was that asked me this question, but they were talking about their account information. They wanted to make sure, hey, my office and my address is correct, okay? Because I think that my information may not be accurate. So this is a great place for you to go in here and check to make sure that your name is in there correctly, your office information is correctly, and your email is in there correctly, because that is what's going to be used in terms of when you're using your e-sign program. You want it to go into the right email address, okay? So you can actually go in here and make the change to the email address, but you cannot make any changes to these 4 fields. Yes, sir?
It's been several years since I've used this. I'm trying to follow you on my laptop here, but I entered it into there. Maybe I'm on the wrong page, but I'm trying to get in where.
Are you in Form Simplicity?
No, I'm in Idaho Realtors.
Okay, go up to Idaho. Okay, well, go through your Paragon would be the best way. And then
I have log on to Form Simplicity.
Right. Yes.
And then it's got the login, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you might have to go through your Paragon program. If you wanted to go through the other way, then you probably want to go ahead and register for a password. Okay. That's why I went with that screenshots that we did earlier. So if you go in through your Paragon, then all you have to do is just go through there. So what you see here in your account information, if there's anything incorrect in your address, office name, office address, NERDS number, then you need to contact your association here and find out why the information is not correct. Now, if they have it correct, then the next thing to do would be to contact the tech helpline, and they can fix that account for you. Because I know I was teaching at an office one time in Florida earlier this year, and they told me their office name was right, but they had an incorrect address because that's an address that came from an office that they used to work for before they opened up their own brokerage. So contact the tech helpline if you still have everything in here correct. Also, some of us might be able to see, if you go to the name, there is a drop down. You may have a choice as to your name where it may include a middle initial. That could be also be found in there too. Whatever you select as your agent name, that is what's going to be used when you are using this in a transaction. Okay? And then if you do make any changes here, just remember to click on the Save Changes button over here. All right. The next thing is, the next section is the important section here. One of two important sections here. And that is your general settings. Because when you go into general settings, if you haven't done anything here, your time zone is going to be defaulted to Eastern time zone. Well, we're not in the Eastern time zone here. We're in the Mountain time zone, right? So then what you want to make sure, because this is all going to be time stamped, like when you're in the actual transaction detail page and you go check out when the forms were loaded and things like that, you want that to be in the Mountain time zone. So just go into general settings, like you see on page 5, and then click on this drop-down menu and select Mountain time. Now, just keep in mind that this doesn't matter if it's daylight or standard, because this Mountain time is going to be based on the time that you have down here in your system tray on your computer. So if you change it, like right now we're in Mountain Daylight time. Once we go in October or November to standard time, that's all going to go to standard time regardless. Okay, so don't need to worry about deciding whether or not it's daylight time or not. So that is something that you definitely want to do. But then in step number 6 of page 5 is that you also want to go ahead and put in your email signature. Your email signature is your contact information that automatically appears at the end of any emails that you send out. And the 3 emails section that you will see here, okay, I'm not going to play around with this, is right over here. It's going to automatically appear in any outgoing Form Simplicity email. In fact, I'll make this a little bit larger so you can see this. I knew that. Somebody was. By the way, just want to let you all know, when you all came in, my mind has been Bluetoothing with your mind. So think of, remember the old Star Trek when Mr. Spock with My Mls? That's old fashioned. This is now 21st century technology. So now I'm able to Bluetooth. And someone in the audience was saying, hey, can you make the screen a little bit larger? And I know it was that gentleman back there. There you go. See, I felt that coming up. That's why I did that. So anyway, so here we have the email signature appearing right over here. That will automatically appear in any outgoing Form Simplicity email if you're using the Form Simplicity's collaboration feature. But most importantly, as an Esign user, it's going to appear automatically in step number 1 of your Esign session. So I don't have to type in my contact information again. Just do it one time and one time only. That's why I'm taking you here, because once you set things up one time, that's it, you're done. You don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to waste time while you're in the transaction. Oh, geez, I got to do an email ad, whatever. So that is all done here. Once you make these 2 entries, just remember to click on the Save Changes button like you see in step number 6. And then Form Simplicity is going to give you a confirmation message saying that the email signature and the time zone have been successfully changed. Any questions so far on the first 2? Page 6. And this is referring to the next section here called email notifications. Now, if you're following with me on your computer, and it's not, when you go back to your computer, what probably is going to look like is something like this. It's going to have your email notifications, but they're all going to be off. We're all of us, even when I was a realtor, I considered myself the same thing, but we are all 21st century mobile realtors, right? We have this gadget called the smartphone. We also have our little tablet with the data plan, right? And you're out there doing your business, doing your work, checking out your appointments and things like that. And you probably don't have a clue as to what's going on with your transaction. Well, why not? Instead of you having to go into the actual transaction and seeing every time what's going on with it, why not get notified as to what actually is going on with it? This was my #1 feature in this screen here. So the first thing I want to talk about on page 6 is your task is due. That's the first line item. Because see, on top of page 6 in that paragraph, it tells you that you're going to have Form Simplicity work for you by being notified as to what's going on in your transaction. And it's going to use that email address that's in your account information. And these are basically what you see here are push notifications. All right. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. But I've always felt this was, I think, a cool bunch of features to use and select and put them into the send mode. So the first option I'm going to show you here is by right here, it says when a task is due. And I'm going to put that in the send mode. And what that's going to tell me that when I create a task in a transaction using Form Simplicity's task management tool, I'm going to get an email reminder that that task is due. So let's say I had an inspection that's due today and I still haven't gotten that report. Well, then I better get chop, Kaz, let's get that going. And then I'll get that reminder in the middle of the night. So if you happen to be working in the middle of the night on a transaction, you'll get that email notification right there. And that way you can get on the inspector at that time.
And how far in advance is that?
It's usually that morning, first thing in the morning. Now they're going to change that a little bit because I know several members, and I know when I was a realtor, I kind of asked for this kind of feature. It would be nice to get like a 2-day reminder or something like that, that an inspection is due, not like that day. So that I understand they are working on doing something like that. Yeah, I don't know what the time frame is, but they are thinking of, because I said it doesn't make sense of me getting something that's due today and, you know, they're not in town, they're on vacation, let's say. You know, so yeah, it'd be nice to know a little bit sooner. The next thing I want to talk about is the when an assigned task is marked as complete. This feature or this notification would be handy if you assigned a task to a service provider. You have that ability in when you're creating a task. We'll show that to you in the second class, where you can actually create tasks. Let's say for a plumber, you need to have a plumber go fix a leak in the kitchen somewhere. So then you can actually assign it to that plumber. They will get an email from Form Simplicity that they've got to fix that leak. Then they can actually click on that link and complete the task without you having to do it. But if they complete the task, that second line item that is in the notification section there is going to notify you that they've completed the task. See, so you don't have to worry about constantly checking. So that's something that you can also do here.
So question, so because I don't use Simplicity, you know, anyways, I haven't used it yet, but when you, is it in the forms that it does that for you?
It's in the it's actually in the transaction detail page. You can actually create tasks for that transaction.
So it doesn't come off of what you marked on the boxes on the
contracts. Correct.
You have to mark off this.
Correct.
Got it.
But I'm going to show you just a little bit that you can actually have that work together with your Google Calendar and get notified that way. You can set it up that way, but we'll show you that toward the end of this section here. Any other questions? Good. All right, with a show of hands, and of course, probably no one's going to raise their hands. Does anybody here still receive faxes? Oh, no, you guys just ruined it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, actually, I think I had one in Sandpoint. I had one person raise their hand, and then no one raised their hand in Coeur d'Alene, and no one raised their hand yesterday in Haley. So, okay, well, you're always going to have that. But anyway, you can always have someone fax things directly into the transaction. And I'll show you in the second class where that would be, okay? So why not? Why not have them fax it directly to them instead of straight to you, right into the transaction? I know everyone here will definitely get an email notification when an email is received into the transaction. It's all going to be clearer in the second class because I'm going to point out when we're in the transaction, I'm going to come back to the preferences section to show you if that's where we came from. The next notification refers to our collaboration feature. That's Form Simplicity's negotiating platform, where you can actually collaborate with whoever you're collaborating with, whether it's with the other buyer's agent, maybe, because you have or vice versa, the seller's agent. Whomever you're making your collaboration with, you can always get notified when a comment is made, because that, to me, eliminates strike-throughs. You know, like you have to mark up your forms. You don't have to mark up your forms with the collaboration feature. All you do is basically add comments to it yourself, and that way you still have a clean contract, okay? And then the last feature, which I think is one that we all should know about, is where it says when my transaction checklist is approved or returned as incomplete. That is referring to the Form Simplicity broker transaction management tool. This is where your office can go paperless when you, the agent, submits the paperwork to the broker. My brokerage that I worked for, the second brokerage before I left to work for Form Simplicity, we did use the Form Simplicity broker transaction management tool. It saved my broker big bucks. She didn't have to worry about spending money for a module, which we had already here in Form Simplicity. And if anybody needs to know how to use, do we have any brokers here, by the way? A couple of brokers. If any broker is interested in knowing how this process works, we can actually do a presentation, not in person, of course. It'll have to be virtually. And I can show the broker how the broker can create checklists as to what type of transaction files they need, and then show them how the agent will submit the paperwork, and then how the broker can review the paperwork. It's about a 45 to 50-minute webinar I can teach the brokerage. So if anybody is interested in getting that, I will provide you with my email address just before the end of the class. Okay, so any questions on the email notification? Now on page 7, by the way, would be the type of notification you would receive from Form Simplicity. So in this example, it says here that you have received a new file called the new listing checklist in Form Simplicity. So that file went directly into the file section of the transaction detail page. Pretty cool. And then I got notified. That's another cool thing too, because isn't the idea here is to be efficient and also to be mobile and get notified like you do with everything else. So why not have that work for you that way? The next thing I want to talk about is the Esign preferences and templates. Now, the Esign version I'm going to be teaching this afternoon toward the end after we create our transaction. I'm going to be teaching you all the newer version that came out. Okay, we're going to dub that Esign 2.0. Now, as you all know, the current version 1.0, there are what, 6 steps to go through the Esign process. The new Esign does it in 2.5 steps. And you don't have, in basically the learning curve, I'm going to say maybe it's 2%, because there's one thing that's different than what we have now, but everything else is the same. All right, so we're going to talk about it. But I want to also show you that if you haven't done this already, you may want to go into your Esign preferences and templates section here too. So why would I take you here? Well, the reason why I would take you here is because on top of page 8, it says that I'm going to show you how to have Esign work for you, not the other way around, okay? Because you're out there doing your appointments. And what I'm going to show you here are three things. I'm going to show you how to set up your Esign email notifications. That way you'll know how the progress of that Esign, how the Esign session is going. Also, we're going to show you how to draw and save your Esign signature so I don't have to keep signing every time. And then for those offices here who do not have forms in the forms library specific to their brokerage, then basically you basically can set up an Esign template right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you first of all the Esign preferences. So on page 8, once I click on the scroll down to the Esign preferences and templates section, and I click on the manage Esign 2.0 preferences, this is the screen that you're going to see. It's going to look just like that. It's going to have email notifications. It's going to have these two grayed out. Everything else is all here. Who can tell me what is the only email notification you get from Esign?
When it comes back to you.
When they sign, when they all sign, right? Yeah. So each individual person signs, right? And then you'll get one big one saying, guess what? Everybody has signed. Go ahead and download those forms. Okay. So that is the one type. Since you did such a great job, if you want, you don't have to answer this. But do you know where do you go to check the status of that Esign session? Do you remember that?
Back to the transaction.
Correct. So we should go, right. So you're going to go into the transaction. You're going to open up the transaction. And then you're going to scroll down to the Esign sessions, right? And then you're going to click on the send. And now you get to see what the progress is. But, you know, that's, to me, not efficient. I mean, it's efficient while you're in the transaction screen, but if you're just doing it just to check the status, there's a better way. So that is one way of doing that. But the simpler way of doing it is right over here. So on page 8, in step number 3, if you click on right here, session has started, you'll get an email notification that the session has started. Hey, finally, after 3 days, they finally decided to go ahead and start the signing process. So you'll get that email notification from Esign that that's what's going on. Then, once they click on that start button, and they're viewing the form, then you're going to get another email notification that they're now viewing the form. See, I don't have to go into the transactions and then go to Esign sessions and see where they are. I'm going to get notified right here. So that, again, saves me that time. And then, of course, you will get that normal notification that the session has been signed. So on page 8 in step number 3, we have like the red rectangles under session started and that's session view. That would be something that I would suggest. Again, that's my suggestion, to go ahead and activate those 2 buttons. You can also get an email notification if they click on that decline button. Oh, fine. After all the hard work I put this together, they decide to decline. So they can do that. And then you get other types of notifications right in here. But as you click those 2 buttons, like I just did just now, they automatically get saved. There's no save button to click on. All right. Then on page 9, you have 2 types of signatures that you can set up. Recall here, you can choose any one of these signature styles or fonts, whatever ones you like. And also, I kind of look at it, it's also in the kind of mood that you're in. Okay, so if you're one of these, freestyle or whatever, you can select that. Or if not, you can draw your own. And that, when you draw your own, you can save it. And that's going to be your permanent signature when it's your turn to sign whatever you need to sign, your contract or your listing agreement form. And just remember to click on the update signature button here. And that way, whatever you've got in here signed in as, that's what you will automatically have there. And if you have it set on this draw tab, then that's what's going to automatically pop up when it's your turn to sign that specific form. And as you can see, when you go into the general settings and put in your email signature, guess what? There's your email signature right down on the bottom right-hand corner. That came populated automatically from the general settings in my preferences. Any questions on this? And on page 10 shows you just that. If you didn't set up your custom text email signature in the general settings, you can always set it up here also. Just remember to click on update signature, and it's only going to update just what's over here, not up there, because up there automatically is going to be saved. All right, let's turn to page 11. How many of us in the audience, and I'm not trying to be nosy when I ask questions, so please don't take it that way, but this is, again, good information, so I know exactly how to handle this part of the class. How many here where their brokerages have online forms in the forms library? In other words, you have like ABC Realty, you have Idaho Forms, and you have ABC Realty, then you have Fannie Mae, and so on, your association. So here, for those who have forms in the forms library, that means that their brokers have had their forms programmed by Form Simplicity, allowing you, whoever has raised their hand, to go ahead and fill those forms online. The rest of us who didn't raise their hands would have to do things by hand. In other words, you got to do it by hand, you got to scan it, and then you have to upload it. Now, for those of us who have to do that, when it's time to use that in an e-sign session, what do you have to do to get them to sign that form? That's not been in the library, but it's a form that you upload. What do you have to do once you put them into the e-sign session? You have to what? Assign where they would have to initial or sign at the line, right? And you have to do that every time you do an e-sign session. That's crazy. Why not just set up that e-sign template one time, define the roles where you want them to sign, and then when it's time to use that template in an e-sign session, you're going to be able to just put the people's names. I think that makes good sense to me. So let's go ahead and talk about that for those of us who may have to do this. On page 11, step number 2 talks about managing your eSign 2.0 templates. So it's going to open up another tab, and it's going to take you to the template screen. Then step number 3, you're going to click on the add button right here, and it's going to take you to the templates screen, the template detail screen. So now in step number 4, you're going to have to give it a name. What's the name of the form that you have to use in an eSign template that your brokerage did not program? I know when I was a realtor working for the 2 brokerages I worked for, neither of them had their forms programmed by Form Simplicity. So I kind of had to fend for myself. And so were the other agents as well. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here using your call letters of your association here, BRR. And then we're going to type in here, new listing checklist. This is a form that's in my make-believe brokerage that I am required to use in a residential listing transaction. Now I have to give it a description, or I don't have to give it a description. That doesn't matter, okay? So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and type in here that it is going to be used for residential listing transactions. I could let that blank, didn't have to put anything there. But as you can see, as I get older, I need something to jog my memory, so that's going to help me remember what that form is used for. So that is what you see on page, in step number 4 on page 11. Then on page 12, talks about where you can actually upload from two different sources. The first source right here, it says upload. That's going to allow you to upload that file, because it has to be a file, from your computer. And the second option that you see there, get from the cloud, if you click on that, you can actually download or upload your file from OneDrive, Dropbox, or Box.com. So those would be the three cloud storage programs that would be uploaded from. But I'm going to go ahead and use this from my computer because I don't have any of those programs. So I'm going to go ahead and locate my document or my file. And notice that I have new listing checklist as a Word document. And also I have the new listing checklist as a PDF. I would suggest that you upload the PDF version of the document. Because yes, you can actually upload the Word document, but, and I don't know why it does that, but it doesn't give me the document name. It actually gives me a serial number when it converts it to a PDF. So I just tell members, just go ahead and upload the PDF version of it. That's just something that we used to do with the version 1.0, but I would also suggest that you do it with version 2.0. So I'm going to click on the new listing checklist, click on open, and or I could have dragged it over here if I wanted to as well, because you can drag the files here. And here is the 3-page document. If notice to the right here in your ellipsis on page 12 in step number 6, you have the ellipsis where if you uploaded the wrong document, you can always delete it and start the process again, okay? Then we have to decide who our signers are going to be. Now, we're not going to have real people. We're just defining the signer roles. That's all we're doing here, because we're not in an actual session. We're doing a template. And all you got to do is just do this one time. So all I have to do now in step number 7 is to click on the add role and then locate what the signer roles are. Now, the requirement for this particular form, the roles that I need to include here are 2 sellers and the seller's agent. So all I got to do here is click on seller and seller's agent. Okay.
So what page is that, 13 or
page 12? Page 12, step 7. Toward the bottom there. So once you select in that sign role pop-up window, you now go ahead and make your selection. And then I would click on select. And so now I've added those 2 roles. But I need a second signer, don't I, right? So what do I have to click on? Add role. So I'm going to click on add role, drag down and click on seller one more time and hit select. Now, does anybody here have forms that may require, let's say, a witness or something that may not necessarily be part of the list of signer roles? Does anybody have anything, something like that? Probably not, right? But I actually had a client, a member down in Florida who says, well, we have a brokerage form that requires a witness. Okay, so then how do you get a witness in here? Well, if you notice that there is no witness option here. So you know what I can do? And this is also where it says on page 12, where I can, in the second line, in fact, if you go under the type custom role name, and I need to add a role that's not on this list, I can actually go ahead and type in witness and then click on the plus. So if I ever needed that signer role, I've got it there. Pretty cool. Okay. All right. So that is how the signer role works. Now, what we're going to do is now put it down here, and I want these people to sign. So then all I've got to do here is now follow this drop down, and it's only going to give you the role. It doesn't give you the name of any people. It's just a role. We're creating a template. Click, and then just drag it over and put the date here. You may, and you can also make this longer. That's in case you happen to have a client whose last name happens to be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Okay, you never know. I know in Florida we have people like that. All right, then we have seller number 2. Just drag that, and if you notice, each role has its own little color. So one goes with the other. Now, by the way, I could have created a custom role to include my name, because I know there's a question coming from someplace. I still haven't been able to target where it's coming from. But there's probably a question saying, hey, does everybody else get to see what I'm doing here? And the only way that that's going to happen is if your brokerage has forms programmed by Form Simplicity. Everything that I'm doing here, let's say all of us belong to the same brokerage. None of you are going to see what I'm doing here. Just like some of us in the audience who may be doing this, I'm not going to see what you're doing here either, because Esign is a single user license. So only the person who's doing this will get to see this. The only way that every agent in the office is going to see this is if the brokerage programs that. Then all you have to do is click on the save button here, and now it's automatically included. And I'm going to show you in the second class how you're going to be able to retrieve that Esign template and include that in your Esign session. Any questions on what we've talked about? And that what we just did on page 13 shows you how you would assign those fields accordingly. And then step number 9, automatically it shows up on your screen.
Yeah, you keep saying broker forms.
Brokerage forms.
Brokerage
Yeah.
forms. Okay. I use Idaho forms.
Yeah.
Can I do the same thing with an Idaho form?
Idaho forms automatically have, those are automatically programmed.
The RE25, I always have to, it does not put those signing boxes in.
Okay, then you need to let me know that, because they should be. Let me know during the break, let me know which form it is, and I'll make a note of it. Yes?
We're actually having a lot of problems with Form Simplicity right now, and our association has requested to have a lot of it fixed, because a lot of things not coming in the way they're supposed to.
Okay,
So
then I need.
It's in the process.
Okay, so they are aware.
Trying to get it addressed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what forms. I mean, I'm just a trainer, so I don't know what issues that you might be having. That might be something that's already being taken care of by our forms program.
And I just did one an hour before I moved in here, before I came in here.
Okay, but if what I'm going to go ahead and do is let me do this. You may want to write down my email address, and that way I can help follow up on this if you wish. This is just to make sure. My email address is KAZC, so it's K as in King, A, Z as in zebra, C as in Charlie, at formsimplicity.com. So if any issues that you do experience, go ahead and forward it to me, and then I will stay on top of it with our forms program. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do this. I have, I have just like 12:52. Let's go ahead and take our one and only 10-minute break. And when we come back, we'll be coming back at just after 1 o'clock. So I'll bring everybody back in. So let's go ahead and take our 10-minute break, and then we'll see you guys back then. And we will be on page 14 when we come back. Phone number, okay, is that you can type in your cell number and then receive a text code once you open up your Form Simplicity, or you can have it sent to you via email, and that way you'll get that code there. But that means that every time you go into Form Simplicity, you're going to have to wait till you get a code before you can access that. So that's going to be up to you to decide whether or not you want to do this or not. because for me, since Form Simplicity came into existence in 2008, so we've been around for almost 15 years, it's never been, there was never any issues security-wise, because Form Simplicity is always updated with up-to-date security protocols, especially with a lot of things going on in the world today. So I felt very comfortable I would feel comfortable not activating this, because I know that Form Simplicity, behind Form Simplicity, they always will have the security protocol set up. All right, so that would be on page 15. And then let's jump over to page 16. Something new within the past few months that we've implemented here in Form Simplicity in the preferences section is the integration. If you click on the integration section here, what this will allow you to do is that it will allow you to do a couple of things. And I want to go ahead and disable this for a moment. How many here have Google Calendar? All right, well, you must have made a big impression at the Tech Helpline or to our Form Simplicity programmers, because now since you all are using Google Calendar, you can actually activate it so it can now sync together with Form Simplicity. Meaning that if you let's say you use the seller representation agreement form to add a listing in and create a listing package, and now you are go ahead and put your list date and your expiration date, those dates will automatically sync with your Google Calendar, which I think is nice, because that way, instead of you having to say, keep going into the listing and checking it out, and since we don't have a module that does that here as a calendar module, at least we can have it sync with the popular Google Calendar that's out there and being used by everyone else. So on page 17 shows you that we have Google Calendar, and all you have to do to activate this is to click on the Google Calendar tile. Then obviously you have to have a Google account. Obviously, if you didn't have a Google account, you wouldn't have a calendar. But all you have to do is to click on the sign in with Google Calendar. And then on page 18, even though it doesn't do it here, because I've done this so many different times, it's not going to ask me those questions anymore. But on page 18, once in step number 5, you log into your Google account, step 6 is going to ask you to check mark see, create, change, and delete events on Google Calendars that you own. So whatever you do in Form Simplicity, it's going to automatically synchronize with your Google Calendar. And once that date is passed, then you can decide if you would like to have that changed, deleted, or created. So that will activate that, and that's where you start your synchronization between Form Simplicity's transactions, the dates, and your tasks will automatically be synced with Google Calendar. And that's what you see on page 19, that the Google Calendar tile is now on. And then on pages 19 and 20 shows you how it would be syncing. So on page 19, you have your various transaction milestone dates. So step number 2, we have, let's say, the listing start date, and then the listing end date. So that automatically will get synchronized automatically into your Google Calendar if you put that in step number 1 when you're in the actual transaction detail page. And then on page 20 shows you that you are working this with the transaction tasks, okay? And whatever dates you put in for those tasks, those dates will automatically go into your Google Calendar as well. Pretty cool. That's for those of us who use that. And then on page 20, step number 3, that shows you how it's going to look in on your calendar. So that way you have it all there. And if you have a mobile version of the Google Calendar, that even makes it better from there. The next integration partner that we have is Dropbox. Dropbox is right now the only cloud storage program that you're going to be able to do this with. There is talk about adding other cloud storage programs like Google Drive. Some of us use Google Drive. So that for sure, I understand, will be added. I don't know when it's going to be available, but keep checking your integration section here, because this is not going to be the only 3 that you see here. There's going to be other things that will be added here. All right. But to activate your Dropbox, all you have to do is to click on the Dropbox tile. Then step number 4, you're going to click on the enable integration. And of course, it tells you what you're going to be able to do with that. If you activate it, it's going to say that it's going to connect your Dropbox with Form Simplicity to the forms and files. Okay. From the transaction detail page, it's going to connect with that, where you could be able to easily move files to and from your Dropbox into Form Simplicity or vice versa. Just click on the integration button there, choose the Dropbox account to select. So whichever one you choose, that's what it's going to be pulling from.
Is this something you can go back in and add later?
Sure, you don't have to do it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just showing you that this is what you can do. Yeah, and if you don't want Form Simplicity to go into your Dropbox, you have that choice here as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so now my Dropbox is active. So that's what you see on page 22. And now you're ready to do it. And then on page 23, if you're in the upload file section of the transaction, notice in that first screenshot that the Dropbox button there is now active, because you already activated your button there in the preferences section. Also, when you're downloading forms, it also appears in that screenshot there as well. Page 24. I had a little people looking at me when I kept talking about this part of the preferences section. And you don't have to use these, by the way. You don't have to do this. And what I'm talking about is on page 24. We had partnered, Form Simplicity that is, had partnered with a digital company called Earnest, where this platform is a digital payments platform that is going to allow you to do a fully digital transfer of funds in the real estate transaction. This integration will allow users to request the Earnest payment, typically the initial escrow payment, directly from their transactions. This is something that some members wanted that, at least in Florida. I don't know about you guys up here, because every time I talked about this week, you know, people said, so that's going to be up to you guys. But I'm just showing you this is available. Okay, we already got a couple of them already. That's going to be up to you. All right, but that's how, if you wanted to set it up, all you have to do is just set it up, and then it will automatically allow you to enable that integration. But I'm going to go ahead and take you to the website where it shows the partnership here, and you can actually add your escrow holder that you work with, because you may not have everyone in here. Okay, we just have the major companies, but if you have one from the local area here that you work with, you can always invite them to be part of that list. Okay, you don't have to use the list that is in here. Okay, so if you want to do that, you're welcome to invite them. And then of course, you're the one that would be inviting them in. So that would be something that is up to you, because it's not required. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that you have to do. Yes?
So on that digital, is that kind of like when you deposit a check into your account, you take a picture and you send it? So they don't actually have to drop it off at the title? Because I work 2 different states. I've got people from Bloomsbury to Weiser, and that would be so convenient.
This is, yeah, and that's what it's all about. You're the one that's going to have to, you know, take the picture. Instead of taking the picture, it's all here.
And so can I request that on the buy side? Like, can I use it for the buyer?
What I'm going to show you is this. Where it's going to show up as is right over here. So request Earnest money, then you just go ahead and start the session going from there. So if it's on the buyer side, then that's where you can request it here.
I'm gonna have to get familiar with that one.
Yeah, play around with it. And if it's not something that, you know, that's up to you. It's like I said, there were some members this week that like, you know, some people
I'm
like
all
it.
about convenience for my people.
And, you know, that's fine too. And that's why I always leave it up to the individual agent. So then on page 25, that shows you how to complete that.
Okay.
And so therefore, we are done with the preferences. Does anybody have any questions regarding the preferences? Excellent. Let's go ahead and turn to page 26. When I was a realtor using Form Simplicity, I was always one to keep it simple. And what I did on page 26 was I also added contacts into Form Simplicity. Has anybody entered contacts into Form Simplicity? A couple of us have. Because I found it that on page 26, the reason why I would add contacts into Form Simplicity is so that way I have a reference as to who's going to be involved in a particular transaction. I've got all of their information popped right into that transaction. So there's two ways, there's actually 4 ways of adding contacts in Form Simplicity. I'm going to tell you 2 ways in this class, and then the other 2 ways in the other class, okay? Because there's actually 4 ways. So on page 26 shows you that you're going to go ahead and do it the manual way. That means like tomorrow night, today's Thursday, right? So tomorrow night, Friday night, I know you all don't have plans to go anywhere probably, right? And so therefore you can do, all you can do here is just add your 100 and so contacts into Form Simplicity if you wish to do that. So anyway, what you can do is you click on the Add Contacts button right over here, like you see in step number 1A. Or if you happen to be in the Contacts button right over here, you can also click on the new Contact button over there. So it doesn't matter where you are in the screen, you have those 2 sections that you can add your contacts from. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the information right here using underneath the useful tool section of the Form Simplicity homepage. I'm going to click on Add Contact. Notice here that we have the first name, last name as your required entry. And then of course, in order for me to activate the Create Contact button, both of those 2 names have to be put in. So for our point in time here, I'm going to say the first name for this person is going to be Bo. And then we're going to go ahead and put C. So Bo C. Even though it's not supposed to be Boise, but that's okay. Bo C, we'll say it here. Okay. And then of course, when we do put the names in, you can go ahead and fill in the rest of the information because notice that the Create Contact button did become active. So we put in the address, city, state, and zip, and everything else. Notice that we have a field here called company name. I would suggest now that since you're creating tasks in Form Simplicity, that you want to assign it to a service provider, you may want to put the service vendor's name in here. Okay, put the company name, ABC Plumbing Services, if he's a plumber. Maybe ABC Sign Company, if he's a signer. So you can do that. So you can put your different service vendors in here as well. You can also put in the source where you got your lead from. That's a good thing to know. Where'd you get your lead from? Oh, I got it. I met somebody at a coffee shop. We both had coffee together. He was interested in buying, so that's where I got my source. Okay, or maybe you're attending some event. But let's say you don't want to fill all this stuff out. What I would suggest as a bare minimum, besides the first name and last name, put in at least their email address. Has anybody ever come across when you're using Esign that there's no name appearing in the list of signers? Does anybody come across that? No, because you put their email addresses. That's the key. All right, because if you didn't put their email address, their name will never appear on the list of signers when you're going into the Esign program. So yeah, by putting in their email address, that's going to guarantee that it's going to be an efficient and smooth transition from Form Simplicity into the Esign program. Then after that, just click on the Create Contact button, and then Form Simplicity confirms that now your contact has been added. You had a question? Somebody had their hand up? Yes.
I saw an import button.
I'll get there.
You get it, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. See, I felt that question coming.
I knew.
Yeah, I think we're in sync here.
Yeah,
we're in sync.
I'm the guy with the bad eyes too. You're in there. You're lucky.
Okay, any questions on page 26 and 27? And page 27, by the way, showed you this screen right here that you're going to have to complete. Okay, and notice on the bottom right-hand corner of that screenshot, it says Create Contact. That's the button that you want to click on. All right, now on page 28, let's say that I'm going to go right into the contact section, actually. And let's say that I, for the life of me, am looking for my contacts in Form Simplicity, and I have about 150 contacts here. I don't want to scroll through each of these names to find the person I'm looking for. So let's say that the person's first name I know happens to be Drew, but I can't remember his last name. Or you may know the person's last name and not know the person's first name. So there is that search name feature on page 28. So all you have to do is just type in part of the name, click on this search button. Oh, it was Drew A. Blank. I should have remembered that name. Okay, so that would be the person who I would be wanting to take more information about. And then on page 28 shows you that you can sort your contacts one of several ways. The default sort will always be the first name. You can also sort by their last name, and you can also sort by the group. And we'll show you in just a moment how to put your contacts into a group if you want to do that. Okay, so that is something that you can do on page 28. Now, let's say that I need to go, once I create a contact, I need to go in there and edit something because I think I got their information wrong on their cell number. So let's say, for example, I needed to change the contact information for anonymity. All you gotta do is just click on her name. And by the way, up to this day, I still don't know who she is. So I'm gonna click on her name anyway. And then I can fix the phone number. I realized that the 1 and the 9 was transposed. So all I'm going to do is just fix that. And then click on the Update Contact button here, and Form Simplicity now shows that the contact has been updated. So that was page 29. On page 30, let's say that I had to delete some contacts in here because maybe there are some contacts, some clients that are no longer doing real estate anymore. Or maybe I'm working with I used to work with a couple of cooperating agents that just recently retired. I don't need their information here anymore. So how do I delete clients or contacts? All you have to do is select the checkbox here, go up here, click on the delete button, and just delete those contacts here. So those checkboxes that you see here are for those who you want to delete out of your contact section. And that's what you get on step number 2. Page 31, import. That's the second way of putting contacts into Form Simplicity. The first way was to manually fill them in. And I know you all don't have time for that nonsense, right? So import would be the next best thing. So when you click on import, like you see in step number 2, all I've got to do here is now go ahead and select the 3 sources I would like to import my information from. The ever popular Gmail, you can always import from there. For those of us who use Outlook, you can do that. And vCards are also contacts which are from your portable devices. Now, I do want to state something here because I think this is something that you all need to know. About 2018, when I was here last, actually, and that was my first trip here, but my last time I was here, it was the Idaho Association of Realtors, the members, that suggested that we include the third one. So give yourselves a pat in the back because it was through your suggestion that we have this third option, okay? Where you can actually pull the information right here from your portable devices, okay?
When you do that, it will pull in all of your contacts.
I'll show you how you can pull them in. The first one, first of all, is your Gmail. And when you click on the sign in, now, by the way, I do want to show you where that is in your handout. So give me a moment here. If you turn to page 55, I know we're not going to be finished real soon. Okay, notice on page 55, you're going to click on import. Step number 3, you're going to click on sign in. Step number 4, you're going to get this little message saying, hey, before you import, you want to make sure your Gmail is closed or your Google Drive is closed. Click on continue. And for whatever reason, it does this with my computer. It's actually, my training code. So it somehow, I don't know why it's doing this. But what it's supposed to also come up with, let me try that again. It's only my account. I don't know why. What it's supposed to do here is it's supposed to come up with your Gmail account information. So if you have multiple Gmail here, then you're going to do one account at a time. Then all you have to do is to click on the name, the account, put in your Gmail email password, click on next, and it's supposed to load in my training account, but it doesn't for whatever reason. And also, since I'm in a different part of the country, it's been asking me this entire week to put in my password. Give me a second. Yes, it's me. And that's the number. Okay, so now you should be ready to go. Now it's got, because I had opened up 2 accounts at the same time, so it gave me that message. Now it didn't give it to me here, but what it's going to do is it's going to pull up a list of your contacts, at which point you can select all of your contacts or pick and choose the ones that you have. It comes up with that list. And I'll show you that when we do the Outlook one first. Okay, and that way you'll see that works with no problem. But for whatever reason, my Gmail and Form Simplicity are not talking to each other very well. And Form Simplicity is checking that out as we speak. So that's one way of importing. The second way of importing is found on page 56. How many of us have Outlook? Well, do I feel sorry for you? And the reason why I say that is a good thing. Not to be funny here, but it's a good thing because it's, I would do the same thing. However, it's multi-stepped. As you can see, when we did the Gmail, boom, 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 we're done in like 2 or 3 steps. With Outlook, however, on page 56, starting on page 56, you have to click on File. Then step 2, you got to click on Open and Export. Oh, okay, I stepped on the cable here by accident, sorry. And then on page 57, you click on the Import Export. Step 4, you're going to have to select the export to a file. And then 58, step 5, it's automatically going to take the comma separated value selection. Step 6, you're going to click on Contacts. And then step 7, you're going to give it a name. Are we done yet? No, we're not. And then once you give it a name, you decide where you want to store that contacts. And then on page 60, you hit the next button. And then step 9, you click on Finish. And you can see that's a pretty drawn out process because that's the way Microsoft works for its Outlook program. You have no choice but to export your contacts in a comma separated out. This is not a form simplicity thing. This is an Outlook thing. So in case, I think might be a question coming up, I'm feeling it somewhere, is can I also export my contacts from my MLS? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was you. See, there you go.
Yeah.
So therefore, what you have to do is you first of all have to export your contacts out of your MLS. I don't know the process of how to do that. That you're going to have to call your tech support on, and then they can assist you with that. And just make sure that you save your contacts in a comma separated back. That's all. And you can use the Outlook option.
And with Outlook, can you pick and choose like the things?
Yes, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on and browse for it. It's stored over here. So the way it's going to look here in Outlook would look the same way in your Gmail or in the V card option. This is the same screen that's going to look regardless of which email you're using. Then you have the option to either select all of them or pick and choose the ones that you want and then click on import. Okay? Any questions on this? And then last but not least, you can also import from your portable devices on page, going back to page 31, where you can actually, your contacts in your phones are considered virtual. So that's why it's called V cards. So you have to just connect your portable device to your laptop and then pull those contacts out that way. If you're having any difficulty with any of these imports, the best thing to do would be to contact the tech helpline, and they can remote into your computer and assist you with what you need with regards to your import rate. Page 32, just to quickly go over that. If you wanted to create groups in contacts, you can by clicking on contacts, clicking on the groups button here, and here we have the button that says new group. And that's exactly what we see in steps 1, 2, and 3 on page 32. Just give it a name of the group that you want to create, because in the group section, there's no group names there. And the reason for that is because this way you can customize it the way you want to do it. You can put the group names of what you want to call them, okay? So then once you add those groups in, this is who I have right now, and this is what I used to use when I was a realtor. I would have appraisers, banks, buyers and sellers, cash buyers, even drinking buddies. But keep in mind, drinking buddies does not mean what you think. Okay, it could be coffee drinkers too.
I know she has 0.
Does he have what?
I know she has 0 drinking buddies.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with me. So anyway, so here you can have your group. Then how do I add those contacts into my groups? Then all you would have to do is turn to page 35 and then add contacts to your group. All you gotta do is just click on the people button here. And go ahead and let's say I've got Jason here. All you gotta do is click on his name and put him into a group. Hey, he'll be a drinking buddy now. Update, and there he is. Okay, so that's how you add it. And then once you put all of your contacts into the group, then you can definitely go in, sort, and all of your contacts by groups. That way you can kind of have a little mini directory. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. Let's turn to page 36. Any questions so far of what we're talking about? This is, I think, the easy part of this. The next class will be a little bit more intense a little bit because we're going to be working with transactions and then applying some of the stuff that we're doing here into a transaction, okay? On page 36, this was my number 2 feature in form simplicity. And that is creating a new clause. By creating clauses, it's going to allow you to save the phrases or wordings that you would use in a form simplicity transaction. how many of us sometimes may have to type in the same terms in a contract for, let's say, 5% of your buyers? Probably we all have to do that, right? And if you're like me, where you type 2 words every 20 minutes and you write a 6-sentence paragraph, that could be an all-day event, right? So therefore, I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and save yourself some time and not have to spend time doing that. I'll just make this just a tad smaller here. So here, as you can see on the bottom of your screen, there is a button here called Create a New Clause. Here we have entered the clause name. You would enter the details of the clause like you see on page 36 in step number 1A. And then for the brokers who are in the audience, you'll see brokerage-wide or personal. So you can actually create clauses for your entire brokerage and say, okay, ladies and gentlemen of ABC Realty, I'm the one, and I'm the broker, I'm the one that's going to create the clauses. You guys don't have to do anything. Okay, so that is something that you can establish here as well. So then all you have to do is enter in the clause name. And by the way, when you're entering the details of the clause, if you're the agent, confirm this with your broker. Make sure that it is proper and legal, even though they'll check your contract anyway to make sure it's done right anyway. But it's always good to do it right the first time, because in a little bit, we're going to show you how to insert this into a form. All right. So once you get the approval for what you want to put in here, or if you've already done this type of offer once before, you can always put it in here now because you already did this a couple of times in the past. So that's something that you can automatically do. So let's say that the name of my clause is going to be called the wishful thinking buyer clause. All right. I've always had wishful thinkers as buyers. And I always considered those guys high maintenance in a sense. So here we have that name of the clause. And then I'm going to put in the details of this clause. So what I always had to be putting in was that the seller will pay all of the closing costs and all of the prepaid items from the purchase price.
You don't spend much time in Idaho.
This is Florida. Actually, I had a couple of buyers do this to me. And I say, it's an offer. So instead of me typing this, I just figured I'll just create one and then just insert it, just so it saves me the headache, up to $5,000. Okay, and then you can keep typing it away. Then you're going to click on the Save New Clause button, and now Form Simplicity confirmed that now your clause has been added. On page 37 shows you that you have another way of accessing or adding a new clause, and that is by clicking on in step number 2, blank forms, clauses, and then here you have your list of clauses here, okay? And then you can click on Create New Clause. All right, that was that. Page 38 shows you that if you're the broker, it's going to appear under the brokerage-wide clauses. If you're the agent, you're going to be doing the personal clauses here. Okay, now what happened here? They made some changes and I'm missing something here. Hang on a moment, unless they did it here. There used to be, on page 39, we used to have a preview and edit. So that's kind of weird. So if I want to preview this, I have to click on and preview. Oh, I see. I can preview here. Ah, they did something here. Okay, I see how this works. I think I liked it the way it was before. I have the option to preview my brokerage clauses So all I got to do is just click on this on the actual clause name. There used to be a preview button over here, so I guess they got rid of it. And if I'm going to make any changes, or if I want to preview it, I will then click on the actual clause itself. And if I need to make a change, I can go ahead and make the changes I need to. I think is what they're trying to do, is eliminate the clicks, I think is what it is. Because I noticed that form simplicity over the past several months has become less clickish. Okay, any questions on the clauses? Let's go ahead and jump over to page 43. And by the way, there's this delete button. They changed the color of it. So now it's a nice little white button here. It's red. So in case you do want to delete a clause, all you got to do is just check mark the box, click on delete, and then you can delete and clean up your clause, your clauses. On page 43, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I guess I'm stepping on my cable here. Hold on a second. That's why it keeps. Okay, I'll just keep my foot off the cable here. All right, so on page 43, I want to go ahead and take us now to the blank forms library. If you click on blank form, like you see on page 43, this is going to give you a list of all of the libraries that you have. And of course, on page 43, in that first sentence, there says that all of these forms represent contracts or forms that you can go ahead and fill in on the fly. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the class, some of us have brokerage forms. They'll say ABC Realty. That means that your forms can be completed online. You don't have to do it offline and then upload it to the transaction. And how, in fact, for those of us who might be interested in knowing how to do that, how to get those forms where you can actually fill that information online from your broker has to go in here and program those forms. All they got to do is click on the forms programming button. It's going to give them information of what we can do with those forms. It'll also give you the pricing structure here. And then you also have the forms, the form ordering, the ordering form to order programming forms on those. So that is something that you can also be doing here as well.
So that is how you would have form simplicity, put those in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And the price is very minimal. It's not like if you go to a programming company, they charge through the nose kind of thing. Our pricing is very minimal. And plus, we will only charge you the pages that needs to be programmed. So if it's like a 4-page form and only the first page needs to be programmed, you get paid, you charge for 1 page. That's all.
And there's no way to put them in yourself as the program.
Only through the Esign template. Yeah, like we said in the very beginning, yeah. And only you get to see it, no one else in your office will. Okay. All right, let's just quickly go over some of the features that we have in here. One is that if you click on it, let's say that, like I know when I was learning how to use your forms in 2018, and sometimes I do this to refresh my memory here too. Sometimes I could not think of what we call our forms the same as what you call your forms. Each state calls a certain type of form differently. See, in Florida, we have a listing form called exclusive right of sale listing agreement. You all don't have that because what I do here is on page 44, when I did a search for it, I can click on the search button and I didn't get anything here because you all don't go by that name. You go by something totally different. So then what I had to do was I had to type in here. I said, well, if it's not listing, maybe I'll try seller and see what comes up with seller in the title. And by golly, I found RE16 is the form that you use in place of what we call in Florida, the listing agreement. And in fact, I teach also Wyoming. They don't have this type of form, but they call it a listing contract. Okay, not an agreement, a contract. See, so I have to jump through hoops to make sure I'm talking about the right forms at the right association. All right, so that's what you can do on page 44. And then on page 45, what you can also do, I don't know if anybody here still uses dial-up in their brokerage, but in case your office does, you always have the option, instead of opening up the forms, you can always preview your forms before you open them up. So by clicking on this little button here, that allows you to preview it, and it will only preview the first page. And then the command line that you see here and the command line that you see here, which is known as the floating toolbar, they both work exactly the same. So on page 46, does anybody here print anymore? I mean, you print forms, that is, I'm sorry. So, I mean, if you wanted to print, you can always scroll down, click on this checkbox, and click on the printer button right here if that's what you wanted to do. Or you can click on the print button up here, do exactly the same thing. If you're going to email on page 47 a specific form to a specific recipient, all you got to do is just select the form, hit email here, or hit email down there. And then on page 48, talks about download. You can actually download forms, but keep in mind that when you download, you can either download it as a zip file, period. Also note, even though it says disable editing, that doesn't work, period. I wish they would remove that line, because it doesn't matter, because your Idaho forms, okay, are copyrighted and they are protected. So the only thing that you can do when you're downloading is either print or view them. That's it. Even though you uncheck that, you're still not going to be able to do any editing. You can't use any PDF editor to do that, because otherwise it's not a contract anymore. It's not a legal contract. So that is disabled regardless. It doesn't matter if you check it or uncheck it, it doesn't work. So either way, it's a print or a view option. Any questions on the library before we go to our last feature of the afternoon of this class? Let's turn to page 49. This was my #1 feature. My #2 feature was the clause, and now my #1 feature was creating forms packages. Has anybody created forms packages? Maybe have a couple of hands there. Good. Because notice on page 49, when you create a forms package, you're defining certain sets of forms and files that you're going to be using in a transaction. Because if you don't create a forms package, what happens when you create a transaction? You're going to have to keep adding forms to it. Why do I have to beat my head to get selecting the same type of forms if I can create a forms package? So on page 49 shows you that by clicking on either create a forms package button right here under the useful tools section in the Form Simplicity homepage, or in step number 1B, I can click on blank forms, then click on forms packages, and I can click on create a new package button over there. So you have two places depending on where you are in this Form Simplicity. So I'm going to go ahead and do the easy way, and that's to do it from the home screen here. And I'm going to click on create a forms package. Now for the brokers who are here, you will see brokerage wide or personal appearing there. So that means you can create a library of forms packages for your agency. Why not? You know, this way they can follow your lead. I think that's great. So let's say for my purposes here this afternoon, is we're going to call this the residential listing package. And then I'm going to click on create forms package. And now it's going to open up to that section there. How about maybe you can also call a package the post 1978 residential listing package, which would eliminate which form? The lead-based paint disclosure, right? So I don't have to do that. Or maybe you could call it a cash buyer package, or you could call it whatever else you could call it, vacant land package. Okay. How about maybe ocean front listing package? You don't have, I forgot you're not ocean front.
It
Florida.
might be though.
Yeah, sorry. I know, I'm just kidding. Just want to make sure you guys are with me here. Okay, so.
California hasn't fallen into the ocean yet.
Yeah.
No, we're good so far here, so I know we're good. All right, so on page 50 shows you exactly what you see here on the screen. Okay, now on page 50 in step number 4, I'm now going to click on the add blank forms, and when I click on that add blank forms, where's that going to take me? Library. Very good. So I'm going to click on add blank forms. And now all I got to do is select the library. If you happen to have a brokerage form that maybe your broker said you got to use for a listing, use it. Just follow your broker's lead. Now I can also search for the forms if I don't know the name of the forms. And if I don't remember what it looked like, I can go ahead and click on the preview button and preview it before I select it. See how efficient this is. All right, so who can tell me what forms you would be using in a residential listing package? The what? The seller property disclosure, okay.
Agency disclosure brochure.
Agent disclosure, right? How about maybe the seller representation agreement, right? The seller property lead-based paint, right? So you know exactly the type of forms you would use. See, I was asking that, just want to make sure you all knew what you had to select. I knew what I had to select. But anyway. So here we're going to select agency disclosure brochure for the seller. We're going to do the lead-based paint disclosure, right? Because we're not saying post 1978 here. We're going to select all of these forms, right? Lead in your home brochure for sure. I don't know. Sometimes in my package, I might put an addendum in there just to be in case I need one. That's just the way I would operate. Then we have the RE16, the seller representation agreement. Then we have the RE25. And if you want to include this other for whatever reason, you can always add that 25A for whatever reason. And then you have these other options here if you need to include those. And then let's say that these were all the ones that we wanted to include. Then I'm going to click on add to package. So that's what we see on page 51. After you make your selections in step number 6, and after you search for the forms and preview your forms, all you got to do in the bottom right-hand corner of that screenshot on page 51 is to click on the add to the package button, and now the forms have been added. Okay. Any questions on 50?
Let's say you wanted to delete that particular forms package.
And how do I do that, right? So what you're going to do is, let's say, first of all, you're going to go to blank forms, and then you're going to go to forms packages, right? And then you have to open it up. And let's say I made a mistake on a package. So then all you have to do to delete a package is you have to open up your package first. Click on delete forms package right up here. Okay. Click on it. Are you sure you want to delete that package? Boom, you're done. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, delete a form from the package, so then all you do is check mark that box or a file, and then click on delete here. So delete will delete a form or a file. Delete forms package deletes the whole thing.
There are limit how many forms packages you can use?
No limit. Nope. Yeah, I mean, I have at least 50 in here now. So yes, you can add, there's no limitation. Now on page 52 talks about, and I got to go back to my forms package that I was working with. And it's under here. Here's that VRR was what I was working with today. So now I'm going to show you can also add files. But let's say I need to use in my transaction this file called the new listing checklist, which is what I created that Esign template for. Remember that? Because that's not a form that's in the library, but I have to add this because my broker said I need to use this in this type of a transaction. So I can actually go ahead and step number 7, click on upload files. Step number 8, I can pull the file from either my local computer or from Dropbox at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and just select my Dropbox. My device. Go into my documents here. Go into my folder. And then here's my new listing checklist. I can check other files as well by holding down the control key. You see what I'm doing here? And then I can either click on open, or I can click and drag it over here and drop it. Now I made a mistake. This shouldn't even be here. What the heck is this doing in here? Click on the X, and that's how you delete that. In fact, let's say all of these are incorrect. Guess what I can do? I can clear it and start the whole process again. All right. Now I definitely do need to remove this because this also is a mistake. I can also put in a file description here. Then I click on Save Files, and now I've added my forms and my files. But sometimes you see these commercials when they try to sell you the Pocket Fisherman or whatever product that they try to sell you out there, the pan, the bronze pan or whatever. What do they normally tell you at the end of the commercial?
Oh, wait, there's more.
There you go. And that's exactly what I'm about to tell you. There is more. Because right now, if you notice, the forms are in alphabetical order. And this is not the order I like my forms in. So then what do? We have these little sort buttons here. So you can actually sort them in any order that you want. So let's say if I was doing this, if I was a member of your association, I would like to have the seller representation agreement over here. So I can click here, and you see, and if anybody here is left-handed, you're going to have to be ambidextrous during this time because it's only showing you a right-handed thing. So here you're going to left click, drag it up, let go. Left click, drag it up, let go. Then I can go I can move it around however way I want to do it. But once again, like this gentleman said, but wait, we still got more. We're not done yet. I can now go into, as long as you're in a forms package, I can click on this agreement and I can start pre-filling some of that information. So I can put my name here, for example. So, because it's always going to be me, no one else. I can type in the name of my brokerage. Okay. I can also put in check boxes that I know most of the time is going to be cash and conventional. All right. But you can always change that in the transaction, right? And then I can automatically put my brokerage fee. I already know. My broker told me what the amount is. I was told to put in 20%.
Like your broker.
I know. And of course, the co-broke is going to only be 5%, so we could keep 15% of that. All right. And then, of course, in my make-believe office, our cancellation fee for this contract is $1 million. That's how we became $1 million producers. And then we have additional fees that you can pre-fill. You know, all this other stuff. You can check mark these boxes if you know most of the time that's what they're going to be. And then, of course, at the very end, we have our additional terms and conditions. So where I'm going with this too is that right over here, every time you open up a form, this clause dropdown is always going to be there. This is why you want to create clauses like we did earlier. All I've got to do is click on whatever clause I need to include, click where you want it to go, hit insert, and boom. You see how quickly that came in. Now, keep in mind, everything that I'm pre-filling in here will be negotiable at the time you insert this into a transaction, right? Obviously, they're not going to go for that $1 million cancellation fee for sure. That's going to be a big time negotiating item, okay? If you negotiate them for like a $999,999, they may go for that.
That's what Musk found out.
That's right. So therefore, now I can also type in the name of the address of my brokerage. You see that? I can fill all this stuff in. And then my phone number and everything. And then once I hit the save button, I'm now ready to create a transaction. Having done all of these things we've done for the past 2 hours, I'm ready to go. I think this is cool. As long as you pre-fill a lot of this information out, you don't have to worry about it. And then one last final thing, and then we are done, is that in case you go through some form changes here in your packages, you will see a prompt here that says update forms package. All you have to do is click on it. It'll tell you what forms have been updated. Click on update forms package, and that's how you update to the new version. But everything that you had prior to that will still have the old version because that was something that was never available. But anything from this point forward will have the new version of the form. Does anybody have any questions before we conclude? Yes.
The stuff that you put in the forms, when you update the forms package, is that stuff still in the form? Okay.
Unless you had completed something and they removed that one line, then it's fine. Yeah, that we have no control over that. Does anybody have any other questions before we are done? Yes, ma'am.
Don't forget the evaluations.
Oh, yes. On the back of your training handout, there is an evaluation. I don't have that handout, but in the back, please complete the evaluation and take it out.
Do you have a course ID number?
I don't know what that course ID number. I think we're not too concerned about the course ID number. It's what? E1263. 50. I knew that. 53? She said 63. 1263. E1263.